Today's PUBG video is a solo walkthrough on Miramar. This game was a bunch of fun. I stumbled across an AWM and got a lot of kills, so I wanted to share this game with you and talk you through my strategy and tips along the way. I really love dropping at the power grid, and you can see there's about 5 or 6 other players who are coming along. And I'm kind of desperately running around here trying to find a weapon that isn't an SKS or a Win 94. I was able to get the kill there on that guy luckily, but he ended up only having a sawn-off shotgun anyway, so I probably would have been okay. And now at least I've got an M16, so I can push out and find the other players. So knowing that I tagged this guy up a bit, I decided to push him. And we're able to get the sneaky frag cook off there. He had the micro Uzi, so I was just a bit cautious running straight at him. And we collect an M4 there, so our setup is starting to come along. My usual setup is an assault rifle and a sniper rifle, preferably like a K98 or a M24, but in this situation we'll settle for an SKS. Then I see this guy running on the south side of power grid, so I decide to chase him, and he looks like he's holding some sort of sniper, maybe a Win 94, so he probably won't be ready for a close quarter combat fight, so I decided to push him pretty hard. And understanding that there's probably still players in the power grid, I make sure that I check that there's no one pushing me closely before I go and loot this body. That's probably one of the times in PUBG that you're most vulnerable, is when you get a kill, so people around you know where you are. And then you go to loot a body where you pretty much have your gun unequipped and you're preoccupied. So it's always good to be extra cautious before you go and loot. It looks like we're heading back into the power grid here. I think I must have seen someone. And I catch this guy off guard. I kind of potatoed my spray there a little bit, but we're able to get the kill. And then again, before I decide to loot this guy, I make sure that the coast is clear. can see there how I used the dead ground to flank on that guy. Even though he was pretty low because I had sprayed him initially, I still decided that it was a safer option to move out of his line of sight so that I could approach him. A good trick to remember as well is if you're trying to loot and you can't quite fit everything in, and you decide to drop some ammo or some meds, those items will automatically go to the very bottom of the loot pile. So if you're trying to find the ammo or the meds that you dropped, just spam the right trigger all the way down to the bottom and you'll be able to find that stuff again. So we're moving out of Power Grid here, heading towards the zone. This main road up ahead, leading into San Martin, is really busy. You can often get people coming up the highway, and the little compound on the northwest side of Power Grid is also quite a popular place to drop. So that's where I'm heading at the moment. And do I see this guy in his pickup? And the poor fella has some trouble with his driving. He may or may not have attended Harvey's GG driving school. But anyway, that's a nice little loot boost there, so we keep pushing on. So with zone coming in and plenty of boosters, I decide to take the adrenaline syringe, just in case I do get caught up in a sequence of gunfights where I don't get the chance to heal. And right on cue, a vehicle is coming up the road. I often get people asking me how I manage to play with such low ADS sensitivities, and you can see there that that vehicle was relatively close to me and I was still able to track him using an aim acceleration of 1, and you can see how consistent the spray was on that vehicle, and I feel like that's got a lot to do with your settings and your sensitivities. If you haven't seen my settings, there is a link in the description down below, so I suggest you check them out. Now, hearing this guy at the compound in front of me preoccupied shooting another player, I decide to try and push up towards him. I don't really want to push out into the blue if I don't have to. And then this just gets a little bit nasty. Yeah, go on. I have actually made a bit more of a habit these days of trying to mainly hold energy drinks rather than painkillers, mainly because they do take less space up in your bag and you can consume them quicker. And for me, being completely boosted all the time isn't the important part, it's just having some level of boostage on board. So I feel like being able to quickly take an energy drink is better than having to wait longer to take a painkiller. That's really a bit of a luxury though, when you get to choose whether you want a painkiller or an energy drink. That's a pretty prime example of the disadvantages of going prone. There wasn't really any opportunity for me to hit that guy anywhere other than his head. So yes, going prone does make your recoil control easier, but it makes you much less mobile and a lot more prone to getting headshot. So there's 30 players alive, looking pretty solid with 11 kills, and phase 2 is starting to come in. I'm not too worried. Phase 2 you can last outside for a long time without taking too much damage. So I make sure that I'm happy with my setup. And I do have a bunch of vehicles hanging around that I can take to zip into zone. So now that I'm pretty happy with my setup, you'll see that every time I loot an enemy, I pretty much just grab the essentials. I'll grab meds, frags, stock up on a bit of extra ammo if I need to, and of course I'll pick up spike traps, or chicken strips as they're more commonly known these days. So I think you'll see me retreating here. The guy on the buggy did pull up and is probably medding, so he'll be peeking quite soon. And to avoid getting third partied, I decided to push back and fight these guys one at a time. So sadly the care package had the rounds for the AWM, but the actual rifle wasn't there. But for this reason, it's always good to check dead body crates right around care packages. So I'm able to snag the AWM and a pretty good looking level 3 vest. And now I'm feeling pretty confident pushing into the top 20. So you'll see me doing this kind of thing quite a bit. Often when I'm pushing late into the circle, I'll actually stop in the blue to heal up before I get into the zone. The reason being that as an aggressive player, if I'm looking for people coming late into the zone, I'm more often looking at people who have made it into the circle and are lying prone healing. It's not often that you're actually looking outside into the blue to find players coming in late. So with phase 4 coming in here and not much cover, I decided to aggressively push this guy with a Win 94. And this is pretty risky. Pushing into zone in a vehicle when you're low health is a very risky option. So it's best to try and avoid this at all costs. The reason being that everyone knows where you are, and if you get unlucky and pull up on a player, you're probably gonna die. So most people probably know this by now, but keep in mind that a severely damaged level 3 helmet is still going to protect you against a headshot from a bolt action rifle, other than an AWM, and only if you are at full health. So rather than taking that fresh level 2 helmet there, I opted to keep the level 3 even though it's quite banged up. Goodbye, chicken strips. So there's 6 alive. I'm pretty close to the zone here, but I am pinned down by the guy who's camping this building. So at the moment, I'm trying to work out the best way to rotate on this guy. And I decide to push close enough that I can throw a frag at him. And I missed the frag. So again, looting the essentials there. Better armor, frags, ammo. And just like that, we've got a 20 bomb with 3 other enemies left. but unfortunately, I don't play this final circle very wisely. So I'll let you watch it out, and then we'll talk about what I probably should have done better in this endgame situation. So my first mistake here was not playing the circle wisely. Had I stopped for a minute to look at where the new zone was, I would have noticed that the guy in the building would have to have pushed out. Given that he was upstairs, he'd probably have to jump out a window, causing him to do the landing animation on the ground, which would make him an easy kill. Secondly, I rotated to a position that was in between both of my enemies. Even though it was inside the zone, it still put me in a situation where I could have easily been third-partied. And finally, the guy at the top of the hill, even though I tagged him, and I thought I tagged him in the head, which is why I pushed aggressively, he had a third-person peek advantage on me. The ability for him to push back out of my line of sight, rotate, cook a frag, for example, like he did, made that situation a lot more in his favour. And props to him for pushing out of my sight to cook that frag, because I had no idea it was coming, and it took me down to about 1/4 health, making me a relatively easy kill, which was facilitated by some potato shooting. But all in all, this was a pretty fun game with the AWM. You can never complain dropping a 20 bomb, and even though we didn't get the win, I'm still really enjoying playing these full lobbies on the North American servers. So for those of you guys in the US, keep an eye out, because I'm going to be coming for you. But anyway, I hope you guys found this video interesting and useful. If you did, consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And keep in mind that I do stream PUBG on Mixer a few times a week. There's a link down below that takes you to the Mixer page. And I've actually now got a countdown timer until my next stream linked on my Mixer page to make it easier for everyone who wants to stop by and watch a stream. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, take it easy, and I will catch you real soon.